Picture this, you're checking your phone again. It's been 3 hours since you sent that message. Meanwhile, your colleague just showed you a text thread where a woman he barely knows is suggesting plans, sending playful messages, and clearly pursuing him. What's happening here? Here's the uncomfortable reality. There's an invisible psychological dynamic at play that determines whether you're the one being chased or doing the chasing. And according to recent neurophysiological research, attraction isn't random. Studies show that certain communication patterns activate reward-related areas in the brain, while others trigger avoidance responses. The difference? It's not about your bank account, your height, or even your looks. After analyzing hundreds of relationship dynamics and reviewing psychological research on communication patterns in courtship, I've identified the specific behaviors that create attraction versus obligation. What you're about to discover will fundamentally change how you approach dating. Because once you understand the psychology, everything shifts. If you've ever felt like you're working harder than she is in the early stages of dating, this is for you. Let's decode the patterns that separate men who naturally attract interest from those who constantly chase it. But here's where it gets critical. Most men think they understand texting. They believe being responsive, polite, and available makes them attractive. They're wrong. And every message they send is actively reducing their chances. What I'm about to show you in the next section will expose why your nice guy texting approach is the exact reason she's not texting back. Brutal truth. Number 1, your texting reveals your status before you meet. Research from the Journal of Computer-Mediated Communication reveals something fascinating. Text messaging doesn't just communicate what you're saying, it broadcasts your confidence level, your options, and your perceived value. Every message is being unconsciously analyzed for status signals. The science of response patterns. Studies on relationship communication show that women respond faster to messages that trigger curiosity, playful tension, or emotional engagement. But here's the brutal truth. Most men text in ways that create obligation rather than excitement. When you send messages like, "How was your day?" or "Hope you're having a good week," you're triggering what psychologists call low arousal communication. There's no emotional spike, no curiosity, no reason for her brain to prioritize your message. Compare this to messages that create what researchers call positive arousal states, playful challenges, intriguing statements, or light teasing. These activate different neural pathways entirely. Your message becomes an experience rather than a task. The confidence signal. Here's what psychological research on courtship tells us. Women are extraordinarily attuned to confidence signals. Your texting style broadcasts either, "I have options and I'm inviting you into something interesting," or "I'm hoping you'll validate my worth." Let's examine the difference. Low confidence texting. Immediate responses every time, signaling you're waiting by the phone. Over-explanation of your statements or plans. Asking permission rather than extending invitations. Following up when she hasn't responded. "Did you see my message?" High confidence texting. Purposeful communication with actual content. Brevity that respects both your time and hers. Playful energy that doesn't need validation. Comfortable with silence. Not every moment needs to be filled. Research shows that scarcity increases perceived value. When you're not constantly available, you signal that you have a life worth living, which paradoxically makes you more attractive. Brutal truth. The nice guy texting trap. Studies on attraction consistently show that excessive politeness and validation seeking in early communication reduces romantic interest. Why? Because it eliminates tension, the very thing that creates the push-pull dynamic of attraction. When you flood someone with good morning texts, constant check-ins, and paragraphs of self-disclosure before she's invested, you're essentially handing over all the power. You've made it clear she's already won your interest, which removes the very thing that makes the interaction exciting: uncertainty. What actually works? Research on successful courtship communication reveals several patterns. Create curiosity, not comfort. Messages that reference shared experiences or create intrigue get higher response rates than generic questions. Instead of "What are you up to?" try referencing something specific. "I just found that coffee shop you'd mentioned. Turns out you have dangerous taste in caffeine." Embrace playful provocation. Studies show that light teasing in early communication correlates with higher attraction levels. Why? It demonstrates comfort, social intelligence, and the confidence to not take everything seriously. "Disappeared on me? Should I assume you got lost in your Netflix queue or just couldn't handle my wit?" Match. Don't exceed. Investment levels. Psychological research on reciprocity shows that when one person overinvests early, it creates an imbalance that feels uncomfortable. Mirror her energy. If she's sending 3 sentences, you send 3 sentences. If she initiates sometimes, you initiate sometimes. But here's what most men completely miss. Even when they fix their texting, they destroy everything the moment they suggest meeting up. The words they use, the frame they set, the energy they project, it all screams desperation, and that's when she starts making excuses. What comes next is the difference between "I'd love to" and "I'm really busy this week." Pay close attention, because this is where confident men separate themselves from everyone else. Brutal truth. Number 2. Your invitation style determines whether she'll show up. Here's something most men miss. Getting a yes to plans means nothing if she cancels, reschedules, or shows up with low energy. Research on commitment psychology reveals that how you invite someone directly influences their level of investment. The psychology of hesitation studies show that women evaluate potential dates through a risk assessment lens. She's asking herself unconscious questions. Will I feel awkward or comfortable? Is this going to feel like an interview or an experience? Does he have expectations I'm not ready to meet? Will I regret saying yes? When your invitation triggers any of these concerns, her default becomes maybe or I'll let you know, which is essentially a soft no. High status versus low status invitations. Research on social dynamics reveals a fascinating pattern. High status individuals assume compliance. They extend invitations as opportunities, not requests. This isn't arrogance, it's a frame that completely changes the dynamic. Low status invitation frame. Would you maybe want to grab coffee sometime if you're free? No pressure, just thought it might be nice. Let me know what works for you. This sends multiple negative signals: uncertainty, lack of options, willingness to completely accommodate her schedule, and most importantly, it feels like a favor you're asking. High status invitation frame. Let's check out that new cafe on Oak Street Thursday evening. They make a cinnamon roll that should be illegal. You in? Notice the differences. It assumes she'll say yes. It's specific, not vague, sometime. It paints a picture. It positions you as someone who knows what's worth experiencing. It's an invitation into your world, not a request to enter hers. Brutal truth. Your language reveals your perceived value. Psychological research on persuasion shows that tentative language, maybe, perhaps, if you want, significantly decreases compliance rates. Why? Because it signals uncertainty, and uncertainty is unattractive. When you use phrases like, "Would you maybe want to?" you're essentially communicating, "I'm not sure if I'm worth your time, so I'm giving you every opportunity to reject me." That's not attractive. That's energy draining. The opportunity frame studies on influence and persuasion reveal a powerful principle. People value what they might lose more than what they might gain. When you position your invitation as an opportunity she might miss rather than a request she might grant, the entire psychological dynamic shifts. I'm heading to this new art exhibit Friday. Seems like your kind of scene. Join me. This implies you're going regardless. Her participation is optional but valuable. That's fundamentally different from, "Would you like to go to an exhibit with me?" which positions her attendance as the entire purpose. What research shows about date planning communication studies on successful date initiation reveal several patterns. Lead with certainty, not hope. Use decisive language. "Let's do this" beats "I was hoping we could" every time. Paint sensory pictures. Describe what makes the experience worthwhile. "This place has live jazz and the best old-fashioned in the city" is infinitely more compelling than "wanna get drinks?" Keep initial dates simple but interesting. Research shows that elaborate first dates can create pressure. Coffee or drinks in an interesting location checks all boxes. Low time commitment, easy exit if needed, but memorable setting. Now here's where everything you've learned either comes together or falls apart. You can text perfectly. You can invite her with confidence. But if you make the mistake that 90% of men make in the days and weeks that follow, none of it matters. This next truth is the hardest to accept, but it's also the most powerful. Because once you understand this psychological pattern, you'll never chase another woman again. Instead, she'll be wondering why you're not chasing her. And that's when everything changes. Brutal truth. There are 3 women pursue men who don't need them to. This is perhaps the most counterintuitive yet well-documented pattern in relationship psychology. Pursuit dynamics are inverse to expectation. The more you chase, the less she pursues. The less you need her attention, the more she seeks yours. The science of value perception. Psychological research on scarcity and value consistently demonstrates what economists call the scarcity principle. What's difficult to obtain is perceived as more valuable. This isn't manipulation, it's basic human psychology. Studies on courtship dynamics show that when a man demonstrates high investment before a woman has earned it, her brain asks, "Why is he trying so hard? What's wrong with him that he needs to work this hard for my attention?" Conversely, when a man is warm but not overly available, interested but not desperate, engaging but maintaining his own life, her brain interprets this as, "He has options. He's choosing to spend time with me. That's significant." The early behavior pattern that determines everything. Research on relationship formation reveals a critical finding. The patterns established in the first 3 to 5 interactions typically persist throughout the relationship. If you establish yourself as the pursuer, that dynamic rarely reverses. Early behaviors that signal low value, excessive compliments about appearance before knowing her character, sharing your entire life story in lengthy text messages, acting like her agreement to meet is winning the lottery, constant availability regardless of your schedule, immediate responses to every message at all hours. Early behaviors that signal high value. Warm interest combined with clear personal boundaries. Asking thoughtful questions about her character, not just her appearance. Having a life that sometimes takes priority over texting. Reciprocal investment, matching her energy rather than exceeding it. Comfort with pauses in communication. Brutal truth. Attention is currency. Economic psychology, research on value exchange applies directly to early-stage dating. Attention is the currency you're trading. When you overinvest attention before she's reciprocated, you're essentially devaluing your own currency. Think of it this way. If someone constantly gave you expensive gifts before you'd done anything to earn them, you'd wonder why they were trying so hard. The same psychology applies to attention and validation. Studies show that when attention is given freely and constantly, it triggers what psychologists call reward satiation. The reward, your attention, becomes expected and loses its power to create positive emotion. Genuine interest versus validation. Seeking research on communication patterns in courtship distinguishes between 2 types of female attention. Genuine interest signals. She initiates conversation sometimes, not just responding. She asks personal questions about your life, goals, and experiences. She suggests specific plans or alternatives if she's busy. She remembers details you've shared and references them later. Her energy is consistent. She doesn't disappear for days, then reappear randomly. Validation-seeking signals. She only responds when you initiate. Her replies are short and non-committal. She gives vague responses about meeting up. She drops hints for compliments but doesn't offer genuine conversation. She appears and disappears based on her need for attention, not genuine interest in you. The brutal truth? Many men waste weeks or months on women seeking validation, not connection. Learning to distinguish between these patterns saves enormous time and emotional energy. The balance. How to inspire. Pursuit studies on successful relationship formation reveal a consistent pattern: reciprocal investment. The key isn't playing games, it's calibrating your investment to match hers. When she invests, invest back. If she texts first, text back thoughtfully. If she suggests plans, appreciate it and confirm. If she asks meaningful questions, answer genuinely and ask your own. When she pulls back, don't increase investment. If her energy drops, don't compensate by ramping up yours. This is crucial. Match decreased energy with decreased energy. You're demonstrating that you notice investment patterns and respond accordingly. Make your time valuable, not scarce through games. There's a difference between artificially creating scarcity, waiting exactly 3 hours to respond every time, and genuinely having a full life. Build the latter. Have hobbies, friendships, goals, and projects that genuinely occupy your time and energy. Research on attraction shows that people are drawn to those who are busy being interesting rather than busy appearing unavailable. The first is authentic and attractive. The second is transparent and off-putting. And this is the moment where most men either get it or they don't. They've seen the patterns, they understand the psychology, but they still can't help themselves. They see her pulling back and they panic. They double text, they overcompensate, they convince themselves this time is different. And just like that, they're back in the chase. What separates men who naturally attract women from those who constantly pursue them isn't knowledge, it's the discipline to let these principles actually work. Let me show you how this all comes together. Bringing it together, the psychology of sustainable attraction. After reviewing the research and analyzing successful relationship patterns, several themes emerge consistently. Confidence is communicated through behavior, not words. Your texting style, invitation approach, and investment calibration all broadcast your self-perception. Women are remarkably attuned to these signals. Tension creates attraction, while certainty creates comfort. Early in dating, you want her curious, intrigued, and wondering about you, not comfortable and certain she already has you. Value is demonstrated through boundaries, not availability. When you have standards for how you invest your time and energy, you signal that you're someone worth pursuing. Reciprocity is the foundation. Healthy relationship dynamics begin with balanced investment. When you consistently give more than you receive, you establish an unsustainable pattern. The research is clear. Attraction isn't random or mysterious. It follows predictable psychological patterns. Men who understand these patterns don't need to chase, convince, or prove their worth. They create the conditions where genuine interest naturally develops. The question isn't whether this psychology exists. The research confirms it does. The question is whether you'll apply it. Here's what happens next. You have two choices. You can go back to your old patterns, the immediate responses, the eager-to-please invitations, the constant availability, and wonder why the same results keep showing up. Or you can implement what you've just learned, starting with your very next interaction, the next text you send, the next woman you invite out, the next time you feel the urge to chase. Because here's the truth that changes everything. The men who succeed with women aren't doing something you can't do. They're simply refusing to do what you've been doing. They've stopped chasing. They've started creating the conditions for pursuit instead. And the moment you make that shift, everything changes. The psychology is clear. The research is undeniable. The choice is yours. If you found these insights valuable and want to explore relationship psychology further, subscribe now for more evidence-based content on communication, attraction, and relationship dynamics. Because understanding human psychology isn't just about dating, it's about every relationship in your life. Don't let another interaction go by where you're unknowingly sabotaging your own success. Click subscribe, apply these principles, and watch how differently women respond when you stop chasing and start attracting. Thank you for your time and attention.